All right, welcome back to the Battery Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Aidan,
And I'm Jack.
and we are so excited tonight, or whenever you're watching this, to be bringing you an interview with Cannons head coach Brian Holman. He sat down with us for about an hour, talking about the draft, talking about Champ Series, this upcoming series, maybe some Lyle Thompson. That's called clickbait, and we we are just so grateful to him for sitting down with us. And I think without further ado, we'll just cut to it. All right. And we want to give a very big Boston Cannons battery welcome to head coach Brian Holman. Thank you so very much for talking to us this evening. We are so thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, Aiden and Jack, I really appreciate it. Just appreciate everything you guys are doing. Your enthusiasm for the Cannons and the sport is very infectious. Getting a chance to meet you guys down at the Sixes event prior. So very appreciative and excited to have a great conversation tonight. All things Cannons and lacrosse. So
Yeah.
fired up.
All right. Thank you so much. So we're recording this a week out from the draft. Obviously, Pat Kavanaugh, the big story, falling. Falling. I won't say. But landing with the Cannons, shall we say?
Like that.
Which I assume his brother was happy about. I assume everyone in the locker room was happy about. How are you feeling about him and about your other picks a week after the draft?
Yeah, feeling great. I mean, there was all kinds of talk about Pat, obviously with Matt and the connection there, but leading up to the draft, there was different conversations of people taking different guys, and I really wasn't buying into that wholeheartedly, right? So we went into the draft basically with three different mock-ups of who potentially could be there at six, and if two or three guys were there, obviously we would take them. And if they weren't there, I was also working on a deal potentially to trade back and
Mm,
pick up another draft pick because we trade our third round pick
Right.
for Bryce and Connor. Um,
right.
so we had some things in the works, and then basically you go in and you sit down and the job gets taken care of for you in a weird way because you just see who starts coming off the board. And when Zappatello went to the Whip Snakes, then it kind of started going, okay, that was the first block that had to
Yeah.
fall, right? And then obviously when the Atlas took Entenmann, Pat was there, and that's a
Mhm.
no-brainer.
Yeah.
You could arguably make a case right now, in my mind, that he's the best player in college lacrosse. And so we were ecstatic, and we didn't pick him just because of Matt. So I
Mhm.
think everybody knows that, but
Yeah. Oh,
it
absolutely.
certainly it certainly does help.
Yeah.
So we were ecstatic to get that. And then a guy that I think you guys will come to know, somebody that we were very high on. And that's one of the reasons I didn't want to trade back is Alex Fedaro. We drafted him second at 14, and I think Alex, pound for pound, in my mind, is probably one of the most underrated lacrosse players in all of Division One. He brings so much to the midfield. Uh, he's fast, he's tough, he's both handed. He's got great vision. If you go back and look at his stats, very very similar stat lines to Matt Campbell over his career
Mm.
with Princeton and Georgetown. And obviously, his connection with Coach Mitch helped a lot because he knows our offense like the back of his hand. His junior year at Princeton, he was 23 and 21 as a midfielder, which is,
Wow.
Wow.
and carrying the pole around. He got pulled every game.
Yeah.
And then this year at Georgetown, he's 30. I think he's 30 or 31 and 15 right now. He's their leading midfield scorer in the Big East, and he
Mm.
was the second leading scorer in midfield uh, uh, in the Ivy Leagues behind Sam Hanley his junior year. So I don't think Alex gets a lot of publicity because he's not a flashy player.
Yeah.
He's a grinder. He fits our culture perfectly, as does Pat. Um, And then in the third round, we went for Scott Smith. There's a 50-50 chance he goes back to Hopkins for another year, but we knew that. Talked to Coach Milliman beforehand, and he felt that it was maybe 50-50 or maybe less, right? That he gets that fifth year. And I love Scott. Coach Hartzell has trained with Scott a lot in the past and very familiar with his play. So Coach Hartzell is high on Scott Smith. He's got great feet. He's a great on-ball guy, but he's got excellent off-ball coverage. And at the end of the day, and this is something, as you guys know, for the Cannons, he's got an edge. He's got an edge. He's a very tough checker, and he's physically willing to put his nose in the middle of things, and that's something that we like in our defensemen. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so really happy with those three guys.
Great.
We picked up some more too, but we can talk about some other
Oh, of
parts.
course. Yeah. You mentioning Hartzell there kind of dovetails into what I wanted to ask next is how many people besides yourself were involved in your coming up with your big boards and the list of guys you wanted to acquire. You joked obviously Matt Kavanaugh had a factor in but I assume a lot of other guys in the coaching staff, but team leadership, what was that, what were those conversations like?
Yeah, it's great. Everybody involved was obviously me and Coach Mitchell and Coach Hartzell. Eric Iskols, our operations manager for the PLL, was heavily involved. Eric is a lacrosse rat. He also is the operations director of operations for the Holy Cross men's and women's team. He does both jobs, which is, if anybody's ever knows what that job entails, it's almost physically impossible to do two teams, and he does them. But he's got a great eye, and he knows a lot about what I'm looking for in a player. So he had a lot of impact. And then the only player that we really kind of leaned on a lot was Adam Gittleman. Adam has got an incredible eye for the game. Obviously, he worked with me in Utah. He was a really good scout. He also understands the culture and the types of players that we're looking for. So he built out his own board, honestly, for us. And so we had Eric built a board. I built the board, Adam built the board, and Coach Mitch and Coach Hartz had a board. And what we tried to do is not cross over too much, talk too much about people that were on our boards. And then at the end, about 2 or 3 weeks prior to the draft, I started kind of compiling all the boards. So seeing who was consistent on 3 or 4 boards, right? Who may have only been on one board. Like, wow, I didn't think about this kid. I haven't seen him. Give me some time to pull up some film or talk to some people. So we're pretty happy with our process, but those were the main components. And then obviously I put out to our guys on a Zoom, anybody that anybody that you believe would be a good fit for us, just shoot me a text, send me information that you have. So we had input from other players on the team, but those were the main components of building out sort of the draft board, right?
Awesome.
And so, you just gave us basically kind of a rundown on everything that goes into the draft. Now we're post-draft, and I'm curious to hear about, a lot of those guys that you just picked, they're now going through the NCAA tournament. All 3 guys contributed to some big wins last weekend. Yeah. Season's just a few weeks away. How do you go about getting those guys incorporated into the team, not only given how little time there is before the season starts, but also, Pat and Alex and Scott are very preoccupied with with their current college team right now. So how do you sort of get them up and running with the new group?
Yeah, Jack, and I think that's a really good observation. So I spoke to all 3 of those guys right after the draft, shot them a text, and then asked if I could jump on a call, and spoke to all 3 of them that night right after we were finished. And my message was twofold. One, it was just to welcome them into our family, explain a little bit about why we drafted them, talk to them about our pillars. I sent them a copy of what it's like to be a Cannon. But the end of the conversation was that this will be the last conversation we have until you're done doing what you're supposed to do. I was emphatic and am emphatic about all of our guys. Andrew Cook and Carter Parlett are all still playing. That I don't want to run interference. All right, your future of a Cannon is, we've got a long runway, right? Like, and they owe their school and they owe their team their best effort. So I basically said, we're not going to talk. If you need me, you call me, but I'll shoot you a text, wish you good luck on your games coming up. But we'll have plenty of time to get them indoctrinated into being a Cannon. And look, if some of those guys go all the way to Memorial Day, we're not planning on playing them for, a week or two or whatever. Like, if there's no hurt, I guess my point is, like, I'm not in a rush to take those guys right from the college field and try to get them on a pro field until I feel that they are ready. Right. And that's not gonna do them any good. And it's not gonna do me any good. We've got plenty of guys that can play in the meantime. So, but the message was simple. The message is, we're happy as heck. They're happy as heck. This is over now. Now you need to focus on going to win a national championship. And that's priority number one. Put the Cannons in the background. And I just don't want to really talk to you guys anymore until you're finished your season. And I wish them all the best. So now with Mike Robinson's the only one that's not playing right now that we got in the supplemental draft. Mike and I were on the phone for an hour today, talking about, expectations, talking about his game, talking about, things that I think he did really well, having him explain to me how he envisions himself as a professional lacrosse player, strengths, weaknesses, talking about our culture, reviewed some of our binder, just to get him kind of more amped up, because he's done, right? He's hanging out with his boys in Delaware. I told him not to be hanging out too much, have fun, but, staying in shape. So that's a different approach, right? I feel that I owe it to him. But I also feel like I'm not hurting Delaware in any sense, and I'm not hurting Mike in any sense by spending that much time with him. So we had a wonderful talk today for an hour, and I think that kid's got something special. I don't want to jinx him, but I got a feeling about Mike Robinson. So
I actually wanted to tell you a brief story in response to that. So we interviewed Dan Aresti about 6 weeks ago, and one of the questions we asked was, who did he think could go undrafted but have a very big impact, kind of similar to Ethan Rawl did last year. And the first guy he brought up was Mike Robinson.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should hire Dan. Maybe Dan can come and be my GM. That dude is in touch, man. I really have I have a lot of appreciation for him. I don't do, as you guys know, I don't do like social media much. I don't do any of that. So, but I have read some of the stuff that Dan has written, and it's very impressive. He has a very, very good sense of the game. I think he does a good job. So I'm psyched. If Dan says he's going to be a sleeper, we're good.
Yeah. As long as if he's half as good as your sleeper undrafted pickup was last year.
We'd be happy. Right?
Yeah, I will. I'll definitely be picking up an Ethan Rawl jersey once the 2024 jerseys drop.
Yes. Yeah. If I were to get a jersey, it might be Ethan Rawl.
Yeah, I was a former LSM myself. He's an easy guy to love.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. So maybe the biggest surprise I think that Jack and myself had, and some other Cannons fans, from the draft and from the supplemental pickups, was not a face-off guy. Obviously you got Tucci on the roster, but I think we all thought maybe you'd pick up something else. What are your plans for the face-off going into 2024? Obviously not spoiling your strategy to give other teams competitive advantage. We know the Bill Tierney is definitely listening to this.
I don't think I'm going to surprise anybody with my strategy, so I'm not too worried about it. First of all, I've got a lot of faith in Zach Tucci. We had some wonderful conversations. I remember watching Zach playing at UNC.
Mm,
Um, you know, I don't really think he's having a fair shot in the league, and I know he feels that way. He's a very, very, very competitive son of a
mm,
gun. Extremely athletic. So it starts with Zach. I'm going to give him every opportunity in the world to be the best face-off guy that he can be for us. We've talked about different strategies that we both think might work and help us in different ways.
mhm,
So we're going to spend camp really just focusing in on him. And then, we're going to roll some other guys out there. Connor Kirst is a guy that has face-off
mm,
capabilities. He's faced off in the past. He faces off in the NLL. So he's not foreign to going out there and bending over and scrapping for the ball. Zach Goodrich was a good face-off guy. Goody played with a bum shoulder last year a little bit, so I was very hesitant about even thinking about putting him out there at times.
mm.
But he's a guy. Bubba Fairman is always looking for things to do on a
Yeah.
lacrosse field, and he's said that he can go out there and see what he can do. So I think we're going to be okay. I guess where I've been on record of saying this, and I'll say it again, is you know, I've talked to a lot of the top face-off gurus and guys that I really do trust that know that business. I don't. And there weren't many guys in the draft that they felt that were going to give Trevor and Joe and Sisselberger and TD a run.
Mm,
So, that may not be true, right? Luke Weirman may do it. Naso may do it. I don't know, right? But I've got to rely on guys that have expertise in an area that I don't. So now, do I waste a draft pick? Do I waste a supplemental draft? Do I waste a roster spot on bringing another face-off guy to camp when that person might be a 30 to 35%, 40%
mm.
guy? My guess is Zach Tucci's going to at least be that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the point? Right.
Mm.
And I've just tried to have people argue me out of looking at it a different way. And I just haven't been comfortable with the argument of going out and getting more face-off guys. I'd just rather have an extra roster spot, and I'd rather see more field players. That's just me. Doesn't
Yeah.
I don't know if it's right. It's the approach. Now, that's one plan, right? If that plan goes haywire on us, right, and we're all scratching our head after a game or two, we'll go get another plan. We
Yeah.
can execute plan B. But for now, we're going to give Zach all the rope he needs to be the best he can be and supplement him with some of the guys we have on our roster. And that way, we potentially could dress another field player versus having, a face-off guy just taking up a roster spot. So
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you for that.
does that make sense for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think that does line up with what we thought, because obviously you were pretty effective last year without a traditional Fogo on the roster. Uh, yeah.
And technically, I mean, obviously teams got better at the pace on the
Yeah.
offensive side, right? They came up with substitution patterns, putting guys in different spots. We've got tons of film on all that, knowing how guys are going to operate that way. But I keep coming back to the same thing: is the rule hasn't changed, right? The guy that you can put out there doesn't have a long stick, but technically the clock starts at 32 with
Yeah.
possession, right? So, and based on the numbers and the math, when you do an analysis of it, you know, there's an argument for both sides of the coin, right?
Yeah.
Of playing it one way or playing it the other. For us, I feel comfortable with playing it that one way. Now, that being said, we're going to have to get better at executing in that 32 second. As you guys know, in the playoff game,
Hmm.
the Water Dogs executed a wonderful strategy. It threw everybody for a loop with dumping the ball down into our defensive end and not picking it up. You can watch the film, and to their credit, they threw the ball down there, and Mike Sowers wasn't sprinting to go pick the ball up. Kieran McCardle wasn't trying to get the ball. Whether that's good or bad or indifferent, I don't care. They did it, and we picked it up. We started with 32 seconds of the ball on our defensive side of the field, so they did a good job, and that really set us back. And I didn't do a good job of handling that situation. We'll be prepared if somebody tries to do that again with a different approach. But I'm not sure teams are going to want to do that. You can just let the ball sit there at the end of the day. I don't have to pick it up.
Right.
And nobody wants to see that, I don't think.
No, I think you'd get a call from one of the Rabels pretty quick if that was
So I don't think teams are going to want to try to execute that strategy, but I give the Water Dogs a ton of credit because they did it and they perfected it, and it really threw us for a loop. And I don't think I did a good job of getting us out of that mentality once it happened. But I don't think it's going to happen again.
Yeah. Talking about how you saw a lot of success last year with that strategy up until that Water Dogs game. So you really turned the team around. Obviously, it was a really rough year in 2022 and just saw a great improvement in 2023, but there's still ways that you can get better. And so kind of a two-part question is, what do you think was the biggest driver in that flip last year with the team? And then how are you planning on building on that this year?
Great questions, Jack. I don't, there's never just one thing, right? Like in life, let me start with the guys that we inherited from the prior regime. Okay. Because I think that's really when I was interviewing for the job, I got a chance to talk to Bubba Fairman and Asher Nolting and Zach Goodrich and Jack Keelty and John Donville. And when I got finished talking to them, not necessarily in the interview process, but just reaching out and getting to know them a little bit while I was going through the interview process, every time I'd hang the phone up, I was like, these guys shouldn't be this bad. I mean, there was just something about them as human beings and them as lacrosse players. So I want to start with those guys, the guys that were left over, because that's where it did start. Because if they weren't committed to changing this, then it never would have happened. I could have brought Marcus Holman in and Adam Gittleman and myself and Coach Mitch and Coach Tom. All these guys could have came in there, and if Zach and Jack and Donnie and Bubba, and I know I'm missing people, and Kirsty and Asher, if they didn't want to change this, it wouldn't have changed, right? We would have just been banging heads. So I don't think people give them enough credit. I think people talk about me a lot, and they might talk about Mark or whoever, or the coaching staff. But the credit starts with those guys, the returning players from the Cannons. Then it was up to me to clearly give them the vision of what we were going to do and what it's going to take to be a competitive championship caliber organization. And that's my job. That's what I do. I started sharing that vision with them, and they started to understand and believe in that. And then bringing in veterans like a Marcus, and Adam Gittleman, guys that have won. Kyle Hartzell's won championships. Marcus has won championships. Adam has won championships. Getting Matt Cavanaugh rejuvenated and wanting to play the game again. He kind of lost his spirit there for a little while. Those are my jobs, right? And then, last piece of the puzzle is supplementing them with other guys, with, Cade Van Raphorst, a winner, picking him up, lucking out with Ethan and Matt Campbell. Go back to Dren. I should be mentioning Ryan Drenner, one of the best players in our league, right? Yeah. So it was a combination of things, Jack, that I believed in them when I first met them, and I believed they wanted to change this thing. If I didn't, I wouldn't have taken the job, honest to God, because I didn't. Why would I want to take a job if I know I've got to beat my head against the wall with guys that don't want to change, right?
Mm,
Um,
mhm,
but I believed in them, and they believed in me, and then it was up to me to then start to surround them and supplement them with other guys of their type of culture, and then that's kind of was the perfect storm, right? But remember, we started out 0-2, and
Yeah.
and you know, so there's no guarantees that any of that. And I tell that to the guys all the time. Just because you do all the right things or try to do all the right things doesn't mean all the right things are going to happen, right? But if you believe, and that's something I harp on. You guys have all heard that term "bought in," right? Oh, they're really bought in. I'm not a big fan of that term, because I don't feel like we're selling anybody anything. I think you
mhm,
have to believe in. You've got to believe in the Cannons culture. You have to believe in your teammate. You've got to believe in putting in the work. You've got to believe in the systems that are being installed. And once that belief becomes unified, right? They're the power. That's when the power starts to churn, right? That's where
mhm,
you start to see teams like dig in and win tough games or and compete like day in and day out, right?
mhm.
And I think that's what we've created now. Second part of your question, right? Just because you did it last year certainly doesn't mean it can happen again this year.
Mhm.
So if we don't continue to foster that belief, we don't continue to hold each other accountable to the standards of what the Cannons lacrosse organization is all about, the Boston Cannons. If we don't continue to push and work to get better, because if you guys remember, one of my biggest things, period, is it's it's win and learn. It's win and learn. Like just keep getting better, keep refining our offensive systems, keep understanding what we want to do defensively. Pay more attention into the scouting report. Do a little bit extra in your own time off the field, right? Like keep getting better. And if we don't do all of that stuff, then we won't be successful. Okay. So for me, it's simple. It's just a continual evolution of the Boston Cannons organization to strive to be the best that we possibly can be every single freaking day. Every day. Every day. You can't turn it on May 25th and turn it off on September the 15th when you win a championship and then expect to be great. It doesn't work that way. Um, so, going into our culture, those are the types of young men that we want to bring in. I want to bring in a Bryce Young who is a worker. He's
Yeah.
a tough lacrosse player. He loves the game of lacrosse. He sort of got a little burnt out with the Whip Snakes. He won 2 championships. That happens in life, right? That happens. I've been married for 37 years. Sometimes I felt a little burnt out along the road, right? But you got to keep digging in there, right? You got to stay
Mhm.
connected. But you bring in a Garrett Epple who's a proven winner, but hasn't won a championship yet. So how do I help Garrett get over that hump and use all of that ability he has on the field, but take another step? Maybe it's leadership, maybe it's whatever, maybe it's more preparation to win that championship. Bring in a Pat Cavanaugh who we know is going to fight you tooth and nail, right? So I know that's a long answer, Jack, but those are really
Yeah.
important questions. I'm not worried about what we have going, and it's just really going to come down to the belief in our system, and are we willing to do whatever it takes to be the best versions of ourselves every single day.
Mhm.
Um, and we all know that that's the standard, so it's easy for us to hold each other accountable to that. Okay. So,
Mhm. Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal answer. Don't
Yeah.
worry about going on. That was
Yeah.
so interesting to listen to.
Yeah. So speaking of the Cannons being the best, maybe we could ask a few questions about the Champ Series from back in February. Um, what I know you watched obviously the 2023, the first year of the tournament. What was your plan or what was your preparation going into it? Because obviously you had never coached an event like that before, and there wasn't too much film to go off of. Obviously, you did have, that first year, but how did that differ from approaching like a regular season, which is, the 10 on 10 that you've coached for who knows how many years now?
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I was extremely excited because it was different, right? You know, and challenging, right? How do I approach this to put our team in the best possible position it can be in to succeed? And that's my job, right? My job encompasses a lot of things, but at the end of the day, what I promise our guys is I will do everything in my power to put you guys in the best spot, all right, for you to achieve what you want, and that's to win. Okay. So I was really excited, and honestly, Aiden, I don't really get nervous anymore with lacrosse. I was a little nervous because it is different. It is new, right? What about if I go out there and just screw this thing up royally, right? Like, so it was a wonderful challenge for me personally. Thank God, I've got guys like Mikey Thompson and Jim Mitchell and Kyle Hartzell, and then bringing in Brody was an absolute godsend.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that he agreed to come with us. So, those guys have a ton of experience, and they're great sounding boards for me. And I learned so much from those guys every conversation we have. So it just started with that, just bouncing ideas off of all of those guys. Mitch, could we do this on offense? Brody, there's a similarities right into the indoor game.
Mm.
How are we going to play this pick here? Or why would we play it this way there? And then Mikey, putting his 2 cents in, and Hartsey playing indoor, saying, we should pick up this point on the field, and maybe, so just hearing all that and just having conversations with those guys, and then we just started funneling down to what few things that we really wanted to harp on. And then it was a learning process. You don't know how fast that game is until you go out there the first night and you're like, holy shit. Like, this is, you don't even have time to say anything to anybody. There's things going up and down the field. There's only 10 guys playing, right? Like, so you can't even talk to them much on the sideline because they're gassed most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So I learned that, like, there wasn't a lot of sideline coaching going on. So so basically, what we went into it with was a sort of a cross between a basketball offense, and then a sort of an indoor type of defense, where we wanted to be physical, cross check. We wanted to be aggressive on picks. We did emphasize the 2-point shot. The biggest thing I came out of from the prior year was the Atlas were absurd in their 2-point conversions. And if Sean Scanone had an average game in the championship game, the Atlas would have won that thing just walking away and spanking everybody. Like, they should have won the thing, right? Yeah. They shot almost triple 2 points than anybody else did combined, right? Like, so that was something that we really addressed with the guys, is that we were going to have to be efficient at willing to take 2-point shots, but also be efficient, right? And then we just decided not to play. We decided not to play shifts, lines. We just run guys out, run them off. Run guys out, run them off. And after the round robin was over, we had enough information then where Brody and I could sit down and make a better choice on, do we go with shifts or do we stay? And we ended up deciding to go with shifts. So we had an O group basically and a D group. And I think that was a big factor in us winning the last 2 games of that series. We just put our guys in better spots to do what they do well, right? Yeah. Instead of having Marcus kind of run up and down the field a bunch and play defense, we wanted to limit his shifts. You didn't want Asher playing a ton of defense, right? And early on, we really didn't care. It was just like, let's see how they do, and we'll figure it out. And then again, I'll go back to Brody. He brought an element of toughness to our locker room. He brought an element of competitiveness. His favorite word is tenacious. I learned that after spending a week with him straight. And he is one tenacious son of a gun, man.
Yeah.
And it was just a joy. And I think he really rubbed off on our guys tremendously with his will to win and compete.
Yeah.
And you could see that in the way that we were playing. Was definitely at a different level. So it was a cool experience, and it's thank the good Lord to do it, and hopefully I get to do it again next year for sure.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, top four. I feel very confident that we'll get to see you again and be in the top four of the standings, and hopefully lifting the trophy in September and in February. But well, at the very least, we'll see you back in St. James.
That'd be great.
Yeah. That does spark to mind something that I wanted to ask is the regular season is the main event for the PLL, and the Champ Series is like an exciting, and like we said before we started recording, one of the best lacrosse games, if not the best, that I've ever seen. So I was just curious for you and for the players as well, is what does winning the Champ Series mean versus winning the regular season title? Not obviously not to take anything away from what you guys did in February, but just what, if anything, is there like to compare between the two?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question because I have kind of mixed feelings on it. Like I don't want to diminish what happened there for a week, right?
Yeah.
It was competitive. It was half the teams in the league, and we won a championship. And at the end of the day, I mean that's what we wanted to do, right? And we all know that that's not the regular season. It's not the field game, but it's also it's a yeoman's effort to come out of there a champ. Anybody that plays it will tell you that it takes weeks for those guys to recover after that event. It's so I don't want to diminish the importance of it. I think what I would like to say about that is anytime you can win a championship, it should be celebrated and it shouldn't be looked at as not worthy, no matter what it is. And that's how our approach was. That we felt very worthy of winning that. We played very hard and we were very fortunate, and we celebrated it. Okay, but that's over. Now we have the next season, and it's a different season in front of us. And I think, and the other piece that wasn't quite, I guess, fun was that the whole team wasn't there, right? So if anything that was missing, it was the rest of our team wasn't in the locker room. All right. So now, what I challenge the guys is to have that feeling and that celebration and that glorious feeling. But now you get to do it with the rest of our brothers, right? And it's going to be our goal for the summer is, to chase that trophy. But at the end of the day, it can't just be focused on winning that thing. You've got to focus on the process. And everybody hears about the process these days. The very, very common term in the coaching world. I've been talking about the process for 30 years with my kids and players. And I didn't invent it. Nobody invents anything in coaching. Everybody steals everybody's shit. So I didn't invent the process. But it's been a part of my coaching philosophy forever, because I think you just if you just focus on winning all the time, what happens when you lose? It's it's demoralizing. But if you focus on getting better and you focus on filling the buckets up and you focus on learning how to become a better competitor, how to become a better teammate, how to become a better player, how to prepare a little bit better, then that's going to allow you to kind of step towards that championship trophy. And that's what we're trying to build with the Cannons is that belief in that process. And then let it roll out here, come in a couple of weeks and we'll see, we'll see how we do. But, to say that one's more important than the other, Aidan, I guess part of me would be like, it probably is. I think you'd have to ask the players that, but for me, I don't want to diminish one.
Nor do I.
Yeah. Yeah. So
No.
I think the answer to that is that one is valuable, and the next one's going to be really valuable too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hopefully you don't have to pick one. You'll have plenty of both to choose from.
Yeah, well, I hope
Yeah.
so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I certainly was not trying to devalue the chance.
Yeah. No, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Jack, do you have anything else that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, just switching gears a little bit. Brian, obviously coming on here, we really appreciate you doing this. What do you want to see from the Battery and from just the Boston Cannons fans in general this year as we, sort of celebrate the Cannons coming back and work on building that connection to the city and the region?
Yeah, Jack, you guys know how excited I am, and we are for this
Mhm.
this marriage to take place. Like Boston is one of the top sports cities in the world, and we're so fortunate to be part of your guys' culture, right? And so what we're gonna do everything in our power to ingratiate ourselves into the community as much as we possibly can, and we're also going to represent you guys out on that field to the best of our ability. We want to make you guys proud. We want to, when you guys leave the stadium, win, lose or draw, we want our fans to go, dang man, I'm so glad I'm a fan of that team. They play hard. They're tough. They enjoy what they do. They're very passionate. So what I would ask in return is that, like, I want loyalty. I want passion, because that's who we are going to be. And I just want you guys to understand that, we're counting on you to freaking fill that stadium and make that place a place where nobody wants to come and play. Nobody.
Mm.
I don't want to see Water Dogs jerseys or Redwoods or whatever. I want that place full of Cannons jerseys. And I promise you that support and that passion and that loyalty is going to be returned to you fivefold with our guys. I promise you that. So that's what I'm looking for. It's just a boatload of passion and loyalty, and just a fan base that's bar none. And that there aren't a lot of other people in there cheering for their other teams come that home game weekend up in July 4th weekend.
We can absolutely give you that passion. Yeah, rest
Yeah.
assured.
Oh, we got it. We got that
Love
on lock.
I
Yeah.
know you do. So fired up. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, I truly cannot wait for those two games against the Water Dogs. That is going to be some of the best lacrosse that that we'll see maybe this decade. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
I agree. They're a worthy opponent, man. They're and we have all the respect in the world for them, as everybody else in the league. That league is so tough. I mean, looking at these drafts right now, you're looking listen, the Outlaws getting all these players, and I really don't lose much sleep over this stuff. But after draft night, I was kind of sitting there like, holy cow, like they just got like five of the best players in the world coming out of college, So it's we got our hands full, but we're gonna we'll be prepared, and we're gonna go after it for sure.
Yeah. I wonder if I could maybe spring one other draft related question on you is I think you knew you weren't going to probably get O'Neill Schellenberger, but what was maybe the next player, like the tier below that you were like, damn, I really wanted him?
There were a couple guys, and this goes, sort of into what we need. Bo Patterson's a kid that I thought would have fit perfectly with us. I know Bo from my time out in Utah. Bubba actually, knows him really well. I thought he was a kid that would have added another layer to our short stick D midi group. TJ Malone was a kid that we were looking at. There wasn't a lot of question on taking him at 14 because we really wanted Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Just I wanted another just another midi. Like, and TJ's not a natural midi. What TJ would have given us is sort of what Cav gives us, a little bit of buffer down on the attack, and then the ability to play midfield if we need him. But they're both natural attackmen at the end of the day. The thing I like about Cav is that if you watch Notre Dame's offense, I mean, Cav probably plays 75% of the game above the cage. So, he's going to be able to play midfield, and he's going to get a short stick. Because if they pull him, they're going to short stick Matt Campbell, and I'm not sure a lot of teams want to do that. So, but like TJ and I will say Bo were guys that we really had an eye on. And then the last guy, and he kind of got snagged. There's a kid, Chris Conlon, that's a lefty defenseman that's going to I think the Redwoods got him. I think he's going to be a really, really, really good lacrosse player. And then you could go through the list. There's Jake DeSanto, right? Like, if he was sitting there, and Mason Woodward, like, oh boy, he's really good, So that's the bad part about sitting at that draft. Like, you're just watching these guys get drafted by other teams, and you're like, damn, he would look good in a Cannons uniform. He would look good in a Cannons uniform.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm very happy with, and there's a thing too, Aidan, that, it's tough in this league because, as you guys know, we only dress 19 guys, right? It's I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thing to say, but I think you guys will get it. It's like, you just don't want too many great players. Like, you only can put 19 guys out there, right?
Yeah.
So I think roster management for me has been something that's crucial, is just trying to balance, like, guys that are going to be good teammates, guys that may have a future, guys that are willing to do whatever it takes. But it might take them a year or two to kind of figure it out, right? And then having the superstars and not worrying about every time, like, who you're going to dress, who you're not going to dress. I think there's a way to do that, we're going to try to attempt that without depleting the roster or making it worse, if that makes sense at all. So you can't have everybody, and at the end of the day, everybody in this league's good. And we're just gonna, have to do our best to compete. So
Yeah, absolutely. And
It's awesome.
Yeah, very confident you will.
Yeah.
I got actually one more question for you.
You got me. You got me. Go ahead. Let's go.
This roster what if talk reminded me. I was actually just browsing DraftKings this morning, and I noticed that they had Lyle Thompson as the odds-on favorite to win MVP this year. And it kind of had me thinking, do they know something that we don't know? And so I wanted to ask you, do you have any conversations with Lyle? Is there any chance he comes back, or you got anything for us on that front? What's going on there?
You guys know me, all right? Honesty is our first pillar, so I would never BS you. No, I don't know. Somebody actually sent me a what do you call them? A screenshot.
Yeah.
With a similar thing, like, coach, and it had like 5 question marks. Like, no, I the last conversation I had with Lyle was prior to last season, where he told me this reasoning that why he did not want to play, and we talked for probably 45-50 minutes, maybe an hour, and I couldn't agree with him more. I told him how proud I was of him to make that decision. I told him a story about me when I was pretty much his age, and we had 3 younger kids, and I was really battling the temptation to coach lacrosse full time. And I decided not to because of the time constraints. And I got a chance to coach all my kids growing up through all their sports. And I told Lyle, I don't regret a day of that ever. And if that was his rationale about not playing in the PLL, I'm all on board. So that was a conversation that he and I ended up with, and I haven't heard from him since. I know he's been in touch with the league about this year, and that he said he wasn't going to play. So I don't, I don't want to speak for Lyle, but I think what he's doing is making him really happy. And at the end of the day, it's making his family happy. And that's priority number one on all of our lists. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's all I know, Jack. So I can't give you any insider info there.
No, that's great.
No.
That's
So what you're
great.
saying is sports betting, you might be throwing your money away.
Maybe. Am
No.
I doing something illegal right now? I have no idea. I'll probably get a phone call from some sports book
Yeah.
like what are you doing?
What?
So
Uh,
maybe you should have checked with me first.
Maybe, yeah. Well,
yeah,
we'll say this
maybe.
is not Brian Holman, head coach of a PLL team, giving you betting advice on anything to do with the PLL. That is purely my personal opinion.
I don't want any
Exactly.
those Boston bookies coming around looking to
No,
bring
no,
up.
no.
Not here.
Absolutely not. Um, all right.
Great.
So I think I just wanted to remark on the family connections through the Cannons.
Yeah.
Obviously you and your son Marcus, but now with Colin and Connor, Kurst and then the Islanians. I think that you
And
said
now
everyone's
Pat and
family there,
Matt.
but I think the actual family has done wonders for creating such a great culture. So I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate that as well and ask when are you getting Cole Kurst from the Redwoods? Uh,
I actually asked Coach Nat that at the draft. Like, is there any way I can get the other curse kid? And
yeah.
he's like, yeah, if you give me this, 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 and this. And one of them was a Holman. And I was like, nah, I don't think that's gonna work.
Yeah. But well,
So
CJ's coming out next year, so who
yeah.
knows what he's gonna.
Well, I would love nothing more than CJ Kurst to be on our lacrosse team,
Yeah.
but if he is, then we probably did not have a very good year. So
I totally agree.
I'm think I might have to pass on that one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you guys. Like, I've actually had people ask me if that's uncomfortable, having brothers on the team like that, and I can see some rationale, right? Like,
Mhm.
you don't play one, does the other get pissed off? Or you don't dress one, how does the other react? But we have really intentful conversations in our organization, and I'm 1,000% convinced that none of that is going to interfere for the greater good. And if I did believe that that was going to be an issue, then we probably wouldn't go down those roads, right?
Yeah.
Like, so having conversations with all of these guys, every single one of them wants, number one, what's best for the team, and then obviously what's best for their brother.
Yeah.
So as long as that's the case, I'll have 20 pairs of brothers on our
Yeah.
team, because it does bring a really cool vibe and a
Mhm.
feel, and it is family. It's hard to replicate family, but it is. You can sense it in the locker room. You can sense it in the dining halls, and when we eat together, there's just a sense of togetherness that only a family knows around that dinner table what that feels like. And it's not all kumbaya. There's a lot of shit talking, and back and forth with the brothers can be a little interesting at times. So it's good. We love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. You've been, I mean, it's just, I think just one more thing that makes the Cans an easy team to root for, unless you're from Philadelphia or New York.
Keep stirring the pot, Aiden. Just keep
Yeah.
stirring the
Oh,
pot.
I will
Oh.
take every opportunity to trash talk Philadelphia. I think the anyone who's been on any of these episodes can attest to that.
I love it.
Without a
Even though
doubt.
I'd say probably the Philly guys when we were at the Champ Series were probably the people we hung out with the most and maybe felt the closest to was AJ and Ryan from the Philly supporter group, and we'll definitely have them on before the first Water Dogs game.
Yeah. And, and,
Yeah.
and that's usually how it goes, though, right? Like, the
Yeah.
teams that you're against usually have very sort of commonalities, like Philly
Yeah.
and Boston, right? Just tough.
hmm
Look at the sports cities, right? Like, the Philly fans are crazy, like,
hmm
and the Eagles, and then Boston has, I think Boston just has this way about it, this
Mhm.
underlying confidence, the fans and their teams. But your fans are tough, man. The Red Sox fans and
Yeah.
the Bruins and, now the Cannons. We want that mentality out in Harvard Yard or whatever, Harvard Stadium. So
Yeah.
cycle play
Absolutely.
there too. What an iconic place to
Yeah.
play. Right?
Have
Can't
you
wait.
have you coached there before as with UNC or with Utah?
No, I never coached in the stadium. When we were at Utah my last year, we played BU and we actually beat BU in overtime. And we didn't have a flight out of Logan until like 8 or 9 o'clock that night, and it was a 12 o'clock game. So we had all afternoon.
Yeah.
It was a big win for our program. BU was ranked like 19th at the time.
Mhm.
And so basically, we took the kids on a bus tour of Harvard, parked the bus, and we actually parked the bus in the parking lot of Harvard Stadium. And I got a chance just to kind of walk around
Mm.
in it, just walk
Nice.
in. And
Mm.
Adam was with me, obviously, and Adam was
Mm.
like, "This is where the Cannons used to play."
Right.
This was way before even this was a not even a this was God's plan, way ahead. Like I had no
Yeah.
idea he was going to do this, right? And I said, "Did you like playing here?" And he's like, "I loved it. It was the best venue in the MLL, and we had the best fans in the MLL." And so, kind of cool
Mm.
reflecting back on that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be exciting.
That's
Yeah. We can't
awesome.
wait to welcome you back.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
awesome.
All right. I think that we've probably reached a natural endpoint here. So we hope to welcome you back to the podcast one time or more during the season. But thank you so much for sitting down with us. This was an amazing conversation. That I just consider myself so lucky to be one of these leaders of the supporter group and to help the league grow. And what amazing access to the people behind the scenes to just share our love of the sport with the world. So
Yeah,
thank you.
likewise. Thank you so much, Coach. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys. I really do, man. It's heartfelt. It really is. Like, I know how much you care. I can see it in your eyes when I see you, Jack. When I saw you at the draft, like you were buzzing, man. I just saw those eyes, and that means the world to us and to me. So we're gonna do like our part. I promise you that. And anything you need from me, just holler. I'd love to check in with you during the season once or twice, and maybe we get some guys on here to join you as well. Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
But
That
we're
would be
we're full we're
phenomenal.
full access. We're all family. We're full access, and we want to help you guys as much as you want to help us. Okay. So,
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
all right, boys. Have
All
a
right.
great
All
night.
right.
Okay.
You too.
You as well.
See ya.
Bye.
Boom. See ya.
Boom.
Boom. Thank you so much again to Brian Holman. That conversation was incredible, really insightful, really interesting to hear what he had to say about, the draft, the picks he made, how he put the board together, some of his strategy, just getting those maybe not insider tips, but sort of just hearing the thought process behind it, I thought was really interesting and just also just a really thoughtful guy talking about family and Cannon's culture and all that. Just really inspiring, honestly. It just obviously I already love the man, but it just proves how easy it is to root for a guy like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of Cannons fans, hopefully all of them, came to love him over the course of last year with the turnaround that he made for the team, and just the type of person he is, the joy he brings to coaching every day in the sport of lacrosse. Um, he's a very easy man to root for, and the fact that he happens to coach for my favorite team makes it all that much easier. Um, it was great to dive into to the draft, to what the champ series and winning means for him. Cannot wait to talk to him maybe at some point, during the season, whether it's the bye week or whenever, to be able to ask some questions about the specific games and to really get into the X's and O's. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, super super grateful for the chance to talk to him. So thank you again to Brian, to Coach Holman. Um, and getting close to the season now, so I think next episode might be a week one preview, depending on how things shake out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's the Canada's first game is the Atlas, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Saturday, June 1st,
All right,
3:30,
3:30.
I
Yep.
believe.
All
Yeah.
right. So we will be confirming a watch party very shortly for that. But we will definitely be in touch with you before then. Um, thank you very much for listening. Thank you again to Coach Holman. And that'll be it for us tonight. All right. And
Boom.